Good morning. That's a tough act to follow. It's a pleasure to be here together with you on this beautiful first Sunday of March. Welcome to First Parish in Needham, a Unitarian Universalist congregation joining people who span many religious backgrounds and beliefs. At First Parish, we covenant to live our shared values regarding the inherent worth and dignity of every person, respect for the earth, and a desire to co-create a beloved community. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your ability or identity, you are always welcome here. I am Dennis Ross Degnan. My wife, Leslie, and I have been members of First Parish for about 10 years. We're blessed to call this community our social and spiritual home. You continue to be our source of companionship, support, and love. I'm honored to currently serve as First Parish Vice President and a member of the Parish Committee, as well as a member of the innovation team that's leading efforts to revitalize our community as we continue to recover from the dismal separation caused by COVID. We are excited and encouraged to see the enthusiasm returning to First Parish by our ever-expanding occasions for fun and enjoyment, by the rebirth of our full range of religious exploration programs, by our many wonderful adult enrichment offerings, by creative innovations in our Sunday services, by the many opportunities to become involved in social justice and climate awareness activities, and by the continual efforts of many to keep our building and its systems operating safe and inviting. As our annual pledge drive wraps up this month, the Parish Committee and the Innovation team are planning to lunch to celebrate our community and to share more about our wide range of programs and activities. The lunch will be held in the Parish Hall on Sunday, March 23rd, from the end of social hour until 2 p.m. We hope that as many people as possible, even those who may not usually take part in person in our Sunday gatherings, are able to come. To be sure we order enough food, please sign up through the links in the bell notes, which will appear each week, or that appear on the signs that are around the building. Despite our joy in being together, these are clearly troubling times, with rapid-fire political and social threats to our core values. Many of us have been responding individually by protesting, marching, or writing to members of Congress. But what can we do as a community to resist this assault on our democracy and on our values? Starting this morning before service and continuing next Sunday, March 9th, after social hour, and the following Sunday, March 16th at 7 p.m. on Zoom, the Parish Committee is convening 3 opportunities for us to share ideas and discuss strategies. Please join us to help us plot our collective way forward. You can learn more about what's happening at First Parish on our website, uuneedham.org, by signing up for our weekly email newsletter, or by following us on social media. Our order of service is online at uuneedham.updates.church, which can be accessed by the QR code in your pews. Please speak with our ushers, greeters, and Zoom hosts if you have any questions or accessibility needs. One final thing. In the spirit of experimentation and innovation, we're adopting a new format for candles during the service today and for the next 2 months as an experiment. If you have a joy or sorrow to share, the invitation is that sometime before or during the service, anytime before the candle ritual itself, please write it on one of our candles cards located on the table at the entryway here. You're welcome to light a candle after you write your card, and we'll use the flame of the candle to light the chalice during chalice lighting. If you're joining us remotely, you are, as always, welcome to email your candle to us at candles.uuneedham.org by midnight on the Friday before service. All of the written candles will be read aloud during the service by our ministers or a worship associate. We know the change is hard, and we ask that you approach this new format with curiosity and an openness to the new possibility. Again, welcome to everyone, both here in the building and online. We're so glad you are here.
We light our chalice this morning, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, with the poem Breathe by modern UU minister and poet Reverend Lynn Unger. Laura, Dennis is on chalice lighting this morning. Breathe, said the wind. How can I breathe at a time like this, when the air is full of the smoke of burning tires and burning lives? Just breathe, the wind insisted. Easy for you to say, if the weight of injustice is not wrapped around your throat, cutting off all air. I need you to breathe. Don't tell me to be calm when there are so many reasons to be angry, so much cause for despair. I didn't say to be calm, said the wind. I said to breathe. We're going to need a lot of air to make this hurricane together. Our opening hymn, Filled with Loving Kindness, is a sung rendition of the Buddhist metta meditation, in which we pray for loving kindness, peace, and ease for ourselves to start, then each other, and then the whole world. Please rise in body or in spirit and join in singing our opening hymn. The lyrics are in your orders of service on the screen and at number 1031 in the teal hymn books.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be whole. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole.
In the Unitarian Universalist tradition, the covenant is a set of promises that the members of a congregation strive to honor with one another and in the world. We strive to live these promises every day. Please say along with me the words of our parish covenant as in your orders of service or on screen. We gather as a loving community to encourage and comfort one another. We gather as a diverse community to support each other in our search for spiritual truth. We gather as a service community to live our beliefs through action and care for our world.
Curiosity and wonder are central parts of our Unitarian Universalist faith tradition. This morning, I've put something in our wonder box related to today's worship theme for us to all wonder about. Does anyone have any guesses as to what might be inside the wonder box? Yeah. A chalice, that's a great guess. Any other guesses? You can see the title of the service on your order of service if you want to get some ideas. Yeah. A flashlight. Oh, that's a great guess. I can see the connection there. Any other guesses? A security blanket. That's very niche. Great idea. I should have thought of that. And yeah, I see one more hand. A teddy bear. Oh, I love these guesses. All right, let's see what's really in here. Would anyone like to open up the wonder box this morning? Yeah, Casey. What is that? Oh, a shark hat. Would you like to wear that, or should I? Would you like to keep wearing that? Okay, good. You can keep it. Thanks, Casey. You can return to your seat. Today, we are going to be talking about fear in preparation for this month's ministry theme, which is courage. And so I put a shark hat in the wonder box because a lot of people are afraid of sharks, rightfully so. Is anyone here afraid of sharks? Yeah, me too. So besides sharks, I'm curious what else, some of the concrete things, people, places, physical things that you might be afraid of. I'll start by sharing my example. Something I've always been afraid of is hiking in the desert and getting caught in a flash flood. Terrifying. What would you add to the list? What are you all afraid of? Spiders. I couldn't find my spiders for the wonder box this morning, but that was what I was going to put in. Any others? Bears. Total darkness. Centipedes and millipedes. Yeah, these are all so scary. Anyone else? Yeah. Fires. Anything else? Donald Trump. All right. Yeah, that's timely. Yeah. Snakes. Rats. Let's take one more if anyone has one. Yeah. Tidal waves. All right, we've got a big range of things we're afraid of. And so there are physical things that we're afraid of, and many of us are also afraid of some things that are more emotional or more abstract. And let me give an example. One emotional fear that I have struggled with is fear of failure. Does anyone else share that fear with me? Some of you? Yeah. Can you think of some emotional things that you're afraid of? Shame, yeah.
My dad having a serious injury when he's overseas or in
Yeah.
Mexico.
Yeah, that's a really good one, a powerful one. So fearing for our loved ones getting injured or sick. Anyone else? Abandonment? Yeah, that's a really common one too. Yeah, in the back? Loss of rights. Depression. Let's take one more. Chris? Isolation. Yeah, a lot of things to be afraid of. And having fear is a normal part of the human experience. All of us are afraid of something. And in fact, we evolve to have fear responses. If we weren't afraid of being chased by a bear, humans would not have made it very long on this earth. Fear is an instinct that is normal and that protects us in a lot of ways. And when it comes to these kinds of fears, like bears or sharks, the best way to deal with them often is to stay away completely, right? But these other fears, these emotional fears, like abandonment, fear of failure, shame, if we stayed away completely, particularly if we're thinking about a fear of failure, we wouldn't ever try anything new. And that would be really limiting in our lives. So the strategy in that case is not to stay away, but to have conversations with our fear. Let me explain a little bit. An author I really love named Elizabeth Gilbert works with people who are trying to live creative lives, but who struggle to overcome their fear in doing so. And she tells them to write letters to fear. And in these letters that they're preparing for a road trip. In most of her letters, she is on a road trip with creativity and with fear, and she lovingly tells fear that he is welcome to come along for the ride, but that he is not allowed to touch the thermostat or the radio, and under any circumstance is he allowed to take the wheel. She wants to make sure that her creativity knows that it will be the one making decisions on this road trip. And so if you were to write letters to your fear, who might also be in the car with you on this road trip? Maybe fear is on a road trip with activism, or with adventure, or curiosity. And you have to figure out who is going to be the co-pilot, who is going to have the most say on this road trip. What would you say to fear in your letter? Here ends our time for all ages. And so now, as our children and youth follow Priscilla and their teachers down to their RE programs, please join in singing them out to Long Time Sun. The lyrics are on the screen and in your orders of service.
May the long time sun shine upon you. All love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way on. May the long time sun shine upon you. All love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way on.
So this is the time in our worship service when we share the joys and concerns that are very close to our hearts and lives. Have I missed some?
Somebody put one on top of the blackboard.
As Dennis explained during the welcome, we are experimenting with a new way of doing our candles ritual for the month of March and April. Thank you to those of you who wrote candle cards and lit candles before service and during the beginning of our worship service this morning. So this morning we start by lifting up 2 candles of gratitude. A candle of gratitude for the Democracy in Action discussion earlier this morning here at First Parish. Good ideas, wonderful community, living out our beliefs. And this is from Vic Stevens. And a candle of gratitude for the life of Dr. Phil Arrett and sorrow for his family and friends. Phil has been a significant friend of ours for more than 50 years. After a life of generosity and spirit and action, genuine humor and storytelling, beautiful music making, curiosity about people and science, and absolute delight, pride, and love for his wife Anne, of nearly 50 years, and son Gordy, Phil died of Parkinson's disease on February 10th. He worked for many decades to coordinate year-long homestays for Rotary International exchange students and maintained close friends with alumni. Phil and Anne made syrup from their maples up in Vermont. Phil loved and learned lots about trains, and Vin and I have memories of lots of woodsy, cross-country skiing and backpacking together. He was a gentleman who knew what was important and just, and he lived in its defense. This was a candle from Becky and Vin Kennedy. And this morning, we hold the following sorrows in our hearts from our community. The First Parish staff and pastoral care team share a candle of deep sadness that beloved first parishioner Betty Aponte died early Sunday morning 1 week ago after entering residential hospice the prior Thursday. Dara, several of Betty's children, and a few first parishioners were able to visit over the weekend to say their goodbyes. Information about services will be shared through the bell notes once those details have been sorted, but please keep all who knew and loved Betty close to your heart this week. And finally, we share these hopes and prayers for our world. A candle for our world, acknowledging that yesterday marked the annual Disability Day of Mourning to memorialize disabled folks who were killed by their own caregivers in the last year. May all of our beloveds living with disabilities know that they are loved inherently, and may they and we live to see a world free from violence and discrimination based on ability. Thank you for sharing these joys, sorrows, and cares for our world. For all of the joys and sorrows that remain silent in our hearts, and for the prayers of our neighbors near and far, I will light one final candle. May the peace in this sanctuary be felt too wherever you are participating from, as we remember that even though worshiping in different times and different places, we are still deeply connected. Amen. Will you all now join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation? This morning, we are guided in prayer by the words of Black, gay, UU minister and director of ministerial credentialing for the UUA, Reverend Derek Jackson. Great Spirit of this nation, rageful goddess, despairing God, hear our cry. Our world has been turned upside down. The hateful and divisive rhetoric of racism, misogyny, xenophobia have all won the day. Fear flows through streets and fields. What was hidden now has been revealed, and it is ugly. Holy One, our faith has been shaken. Where is justice? Where is goodness? Have we been forsaken? All we have left is a tenuous hold on hope. Hope that we can still shift this turning tide. Hope that others will step forward to help. Hope that this backward movement can still propel us forward. As the fall heads into the winter, we pray that it does not last 4 years until spring comes again. But if it must, we will persevere. We will make change in every single way we can, raising up the principles of justice, equity, and compassion in this United States of America. Change has happened before and can happen again. It must happen again. This is our country. No matter our race, ethnicity, religion, gender, sexual orientation, ability, or class, we are called forward into this trial, and that which calls us will see us through. May our grief propel us. May our anger be righteous, and may our love sustain us. Amen. Please remain seated and join in singing our meditative response, "There is a balm in Gilead." The lyrics are in your orders of service, on the screen, and at number 1045 in the teal hymn books. We will start by singing the chorus, then verse 1, and then the chorus one more time. This congregation has been supported by the volunteered time and treasure of its members and friends since its founding in 1711. This is the time in our service when we, the modern stewards of this church, offer what we can to build and sustain the congregation and the world that we envision. For the month of March, we will be sharing our plate with several different organizations. In the early weeks, including today's service, we will be sharing our plate with the Community Day Center of Waltham. The only drop-in day center in Boston's Metro West, the Community Day Center of Waltham serves unhoused folks and those who are in danger of losing their housing. At CDCW, they believe that all people, no matter where they are in their life journey, deserve to be treated with dignity. The first day center was open in 2003 in a church basement in Waltham and was open afternoons, Monday through Friday. Over the years, their vision and their mission grew from offering a meal, computer access, and a few hours of comfort for up to 50 people to a brand new location with expanded services. Today, CDCW serves an ever-increasing number of people. Visitors have access to a wide variety of services, including picking up their mail, enjoying a meal, browsing free clothing, receiving hygiene items, and the use of showers and laundry facilities. Guests have access to case managers, addiction recovery support, a healthcare program, and more. To donate to today's offering, you can use one of 3 different methods as described in your orders of service. You can use our Text to Give program through the number 73256. You can donate through our website, uuneedham.org, or you can drop a check or cash in the collection plate or mail a check to First Parish. Whichever way you donate, please remember to specify whether your donation is meant for the collection or for your annual pledge. And if this is one of your first visits to First Parish, we encourage you to fill out a yellow card in your pew back to drop into the collection plate, or fill out our online visitors form at uuneedham.updates.church. And finally, many thanks for today's flower display, which were given by Janice Wright in honor of her mother, Kay, whose birthday is on March 4th. Thank you for everything you are able to give to help support and sustain this congregation and our community partners. May the ushers please come forward. As part of our season of this year's pledge drive and covenant renewal, as those of you who have not yet submitted your pledges for the next church year, get those final pledges in. Katie Barnett is going to share a testimonial about why First Parish in Needham.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you to the singers for all the love this morning. It's great. I wore my sweater to match. As Jenna said, I'm here to talk about the budget drive that's underway. In the 20 years that our family's been members of First Parish, I've been involved in all aspects of the church's financials, from finance committee, trustee, budget drive, stewardship chair, capital campaign treasurer. Now I'm the treasurer and a member of parish committee. I've been up here more than a few times talking about fundraising and why it's important to give generously. So when I was asked to speak this morning, I went back to look to see what I've said before on everybody's favorite topic. I didn't save every testimonial, but I did find a few back way deep in my digital files. And one of them really resonated with me when I read it over, and it was my testimonial from March 2011, so 14 years ago. And it took on a little bit of new meaning here in 2025. So here's what I said 14 years ago. At the time, our older son, Andrew, was in second grade and shorter than me. And now he's a senior in college, and he's like 6'7". I was co-teaching second grade RE with Tracy Zinner, and we were using the Faithful Journeys curriculum to teach about the 7 UU principles. We now have these new words, but it's all the same stuff, right? One week, Tracy brought in little booklets for each of the second graders, and the booklets had all blank pages except for the few words she had added onto each of the first 7 pages, one word to represent each of the UU principles: respect, kindness, acceptance, curiosity, fairness, peace, and connection. I'm going to say them again. Respect, kindness, acceptance, curiosity, fairness, peace, and connection. So each of the second graders were asked to think about what each of those words mean and draw or write something on the page that represented the word. On that Sunday morning in RE, the kids did some of the work on the words. They spent time decorating the covers with pictures of sports and stars and rainbows and flowers, and doing other stuff that 8-year-olds do. A few weeks later, a question came up during dinner conversation about what we believe in. And as I was thinking about how to talk to Andrew about what we believe, I remembered the little booklets that we had used in RE. We got out the booklet, we looked through it together, and I said, "This is what we believe. This is what we think is important: respect, kindness, acceptance, curiosity, fairness, peace, and connection." We talked about what these things mean, and that we don't always do them or get them exactly right, but that these are the things that are important to us, that we want him to understand and live by as he grows up, interacts with the world, and makes decisions for himself. So back in 2011, I noted at that moment how grateful I was that we're part of this church community. This community that helps us reflect, articulate, share, and live our values. That shows our children, and this is what I wrote in 2011, that in a world where people are making lots of different choices with lots of different motivations, there are people who believe in these core principles and work to live by them. And now in 2025, with all that's going on around us, in a world where people are making lots of different choices with lots of different motivations, I am more grateful to be part of this community than ever before. This community helped me articulate these important values to my children, who are now young adults living in a world I couldn't have imagined, And this community supports and helps guide me as we witness jaw-dropping and heartbreaking developments in the world around us every day. Back in 2011, we were celebrating the 300th anniversary of the church, naming and noticing our roles as stewards of this institution that had seen so much over 3 centuries. And here we are in 2025, continuing to carry that torch. So now, with that in mind, back to the budget drive. As many of you know, our financial commitments from our members and friends provide almost 3/4 of our budget, and the commitments that we make now in March allow us to establish a budget and make a plan for next year. So far, we've received over $200,000 in commitments, which is 60% of our goal. If you've already made your commitment, thank you. It is very much appreciated. If you have not yet made a commitment, I invite you to think of what is meaningful to you about First Parish, the moments that you've had here in community with one another, and to give generously within the context of your own financial situation. Bruce and I recently made our commitment. We've been laggards the last few years, but since I was coming here today, we did it last week. And we decided to increase our pledge by 12%, more than the 8% that the Budget Drive Committee was asking for. We feel privileged that we're able to do this financially. We also want to know that where we spend our money reflects our values, and spending our money here at First Parish is one way that we can do that. We also give because we know it costs money for First Parish to be here for us, and it feels good to support it. Everyone's situation is different, and not everyone will be able to increase their pledge this year. Know that every contribution is important and valuable. You are not valued because of the size of your contribution. You are valued because you are here. The amount you give is up to you. As stewards of First Parish in this, again, extraordinary time, I know we will each step up and do our part as best we can. And collectively, we will nurture and support First Parish in the coming year and into the future. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Katie. The American-born Tibetan Buddhist nun, Pema Chodron, begins chapter 2 of her book called The Places That Scare You, A Guide to Fearlessness in Difficult Times, with the following story. A friend was telling me about her elderly parents in Florida. They live in an area where there's poverty and hardship. The threat of violence seems very real. Their way of relating to this is to live in a walled community, protected by guard dogs and electric gates. It is their hope, of course, that nothing scary will enter. Unfortunately, my friend's parents are becoming more and more afraid to go outside those walls. They want to go to the beach and the golf course, but they're too scared to budge. Even though they now pay someone to do their shopping, the feeling of insecurity is getting stronger. Lately, they've become paranoid even about those who are allowed through the gates, the people who fix broken appliances, the gardeners, the plumbers, and the electricians. Through their isolation, they are becoming unable to cope with an unpredictable world, end quote. Our ministry theme for the next month at church is courage. What amazing forethought the worship committee and congregation had to assign the theme of courage to March 2025. But the more I've meditated on the theme of courage over the last few weeks, the more complicated I realize the story is. Because being courageous is not simply about overcoming something that is hard, so much as overcoming something that we personally are afraid of. Etymologically, the word courage stems from the Latin root cor, the word for heart. And in its earlier Latin form, courage meant something like to speak one's mind by telling all of one's heart. But again, how many of us have a clear-minded grasp on either all of what is on our heart or precisely what it is that scares us? In the story you just heard about Pima's friend's parents living in this gated community, it is pretty easy to see how fear was ruling their lives. But do some of us experience a similar constricting of our world in ways that are more subtle due to uninterrogated fears that we don't even realize we are carrying? For instance, about a year ago, I realized that even though we were no longer in the lockdown stage of the pandemic, my life had, in ways not dissimilar to the couple in Florida, gotten a little more constricted. My orbit had gotten a little bit smaller. Now, was this primarily a byproduct of routines I had developed during COVID to socially distance that I hadn't yet unlearned? Or a byproduct of fears that I was not fully acknowledging? Or a combination? I'm not entirely sure. But I no longer think that we need to live in a gated community with guard dogs to be living from a place of fear. And so, to begin our month into our spiritual exploration of courage, I think we must begin with a spiritual exploration into fear. And to do so, I'm going to draw heavily from Pema Chodron's book, The Places That Scare You. By the way, it's worth noting that Pema studied in the lineage of Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. And if you are looking for a spiritual practice for the month of March, I cannot recommend highly enough the practice of digging into this book, especially at this moment in time. In the book, Pema writes, "As a species, we should never underestimate our low tolerance for discomfort, or our inclination to bolt when we hurt." One of her main contentions in this book is that the reason we do not fully understand the fears that drive us is because we do not stay long enough with the uncomfortable feelings that stem from living in an uncertain world. I'll say that one more time. The reason we do not fully understand the fears that drive us is because we do not stay long enough with the uncomfortable feelings that stem from living in an uncertain world. Pema goes on to describe what is referred to in Tibetan Buddhism as the three lords of materialism, which are three different strategies of ego that we use to provide ourselves with the illusion of security. And familiarizing ourselves with these three strategies can help us see how we continue to seek comfort and ease in ways that only strengthen our fears, she says. The first strategy we use is called the Lord of Form, which is when we look to external things to help us try to find solid ground where there is none. Pema writes, "What do I do when I feel anxious or depressed, bored or lonely? Is shopping therapy my way of coping? Do I turn to alcohol or food? Do I prefer retreating into the beauty of nature or into the delicious world provided by a really good book? Do I fill up the space by making phone calls, by surfing the internet, by watching hours of television?" Some of these methods are dangerous, some are humorous, some are quite benign. The point is that we can misuse any substance or activity in our efforts to run away from insecurity, end quote. When I reread this passage this week, I realized that in this present moment, where fear is a national tactic, I have definitely not been staying with my fears. I have been escaping my fears through the Lord of Form. Pema continues, the second of the three lords of materialism is the Lord of Speech. This Lord represents how we use beliefs of all kinds to give us the illusion of certainty about the nature of reality. Any of the isms, political, ecological, philosophical, spiritual, can be misused in this way. When we believe in the correctness of our view, we can be very, very narrow-minded and prejudiced about the faults of other people, end quote. Have any of you ever found yourself retreating into the Lord of speech to deal with the discomfort of uncertainty? No one? Oh, okay. I too am guilty of avoiding my own fears and frailties by blaming, even scapegoating. But when I am in a space of blame, what I am doing is continuing to avoid and interrogate what really scares me. Continuing to stick my fingers in my ears, continuing to postpone action while I discharge my contempt and my anger. The final strategy of ego that alienates us from our ability to get to know ourselves is called the Lord of Mind. The Lord of Mind, Pima writes, comes into play when we attempt to avoid uneasiness by seeking special states of mind. We can use drugs in this way. We can use sports. We can use falling in love. We can use spiritual practices. There are many ways to obtain altered states of mind, and these special states can be addictive. For example, new meditators often expect that with training, they can transcend the pain of ordinary life. It's disappointing, to say the least, to be told to touch down into the thick of things, to remain open and receptive to boredom as well as bliss, end quote. So how does any of this relate to fear or courage? Well, I don't think we will be able to act courageously, and I'm talking about both big C courage and little c courage, if we aren't able to take an honest inventory of the ways in which we are afraid. Because courage is not about overcoming hard things so much as overcoming the things that scare us and shut us down personally. But for most of us, myself included, we are so busy pushing away the things that scare us and bring us pain. Whenever we feel a tinge of discomfort, we use the lords of form, speech, and mind to time travel to happier times, rather than building up our capacity to stay with the discomfort and interrogate what it really is that frightens us. And we can learn to stay through a practice of meditation or mindfulness. We can also do this by writing letters to fear, as we talked about earlier with the kids. For instance, after just a few days of practicing with some of the tools in this book, and there are many more tools that I don't include in this sermon, I was able to notice that I was using the Lord of form, so books, television, scrolling on my phone, and all other kinds of distraction, most often right when I was about to open up the news over the last couple of weeks. To avoid the discomfort of the chronic uncertainty of this time, and to avoid another possibly deeper fear, which is that I wouldn't have it in me to resist in ways powerful or consistent enough to make a difference when the going got tough. The expert on building lasting habits, Euro-American author James Clear, once wrote, "You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems." Which is to say that if we want to be courageous in the face of fear, if we have not done the necessary spiritual preparation, if we do not journey regularly toward the places that scare us, if we do not have a clear picture as to what we are even afraid of or why, and if that fear is physically threatening like a bear, or a fear that can come on the road trip but really should not be driving, then we won't even know when or where or how our courage is needed. And we will fall short of effective justice work over and over and over again. So, dear ones, this week, this month, start a conversation with fear. Make 2 lists. One of your physical fears, spiders, bears, snakes, and a second of your emotional fears, shame, abandonment, failure. Write fear a letter. Explain to it the ground rules. Work on staying. Just a second, and then a minute, and then an hour longer in the places that scare you. Understand what tends to shut you down and where you go when your brain is offline. Know that this is part of your activist training. Know that this is a precursor to courage. And in times when you feel joy and inspiration, and in times when you feel fear, boredom, insecurity, and you just want to bolt, stay. Stay. First for just a second, then for a minute, and finally an hour. May it be so, beloveds, and onward.
As we near the end of our service, please know that all are welcome at the social hour after the postlude, both online and on-site. If you're a relative newcomer and you want long-timers to come and chat with you this morning, please take one of the red mugs at social hour. Not only are they easy to spot, they're also our largest coffee mugs. It's a busy week coming up here at First Parish. Boy, are they getting busy. I'd like to highlight a few special programs happening this week, but for a full schedule of all of our regular events and other announcements, please refer your Bell Notes email newsletter. Today in social hour, please stop by the Poetry Path table and write a poem or 2 for the path that will be installed on our lawn in April, which is Poetry Month. The Poetry Path table will be going all during May. This Tuesday at 7 p.m. in the parlor and on Zoom, join Dara Bryans and Charles Thomas for another session of Amplifying the Change. This week's focus will be UU history. And next Sunday, March 9th, please plan to stick around for either the second of the 3 discussion groups on responding to the national crisis at 12:30 in the parlor, or and if you already know how to play American Mahjong, please stick around for a game after social hour. Finally, we'd like to hear from all of you for our worship service on March 16th, which is 2 weeks from today, in which we'll be sharing stories about times in which we overcame fear with courage, or sharing about what courage means or looks like to each of us through story, music, art, etc. We're looking for speakers and participants of all ages, kids, youth, young adults, older adults alike. So if this sounds like something you may be interested in, please email Reverend Jenna. We always extinguish our chalice with words promising to carry its flame in our hearts until we are together again. Please join me now in saying those words written by UU minister Reverend Elizabeth Sully-Jones. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, nor the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our closing hymn this morning is Do You Hear, with lyrics by UU religious educator Emily Thorne and harmonized by Black Presbyterian music director and organist Eugene Wilson Hancock. Please rise and body your spirit and join in singing our closing hymn, Do You Hear? The lyrics are at number 112 in the gray hymn books, on the screens, or in your orders of service.
Do you hear?
close our worship service today, take these words from 20th century Austrian poet and novelist Rainer Maria Rilke with you as a benediction. Perhaps everything that frightens us is, in its deepest essence, something helpless that wants our love. So you mustn't be frightened if a sadness rises in front of you larger than any you have ever seen. If an anxiety, like light and cloud shadows, moves over your hands and over everything that you do, you must realize that something is happening to you, that life has not forgotten you, that it holds you in its hand and will not let you fall. Our service begins when our service ends. Blessed be, amen, and go in peace.